Okay, so if you're at that point in your relationship where it feels like it's getting a little bit more serious, you can see a future with this person, budgeting and money is like the last thing you want to talk about. However, it is a very, very important thing to talk about up front. So let's talk about combining finances with your significant other. Hey guys, it's Justine with Debt Free Millennials, the channel to help you crush your debt and live payment free. If you are new to the channel, I talk about ways to help you on your debt free journey. And if you are already debt free, awesome money tips to help you continue saving and investing. So stick around. I actually got this question from Caitlin on Instagram, and she asked me, when did you and Kyle combine your finances, and what were some of the struggles you faced when turning two budgets into one? So I'll tell you what our story was and our background and how we combine our finances, and then some tips for you guys to consider as you're working on this with your partner, your boyfriend or girlfriend, whomever, and make it all happen. Okay, so the first thing is we combined our finances after we got married. Now, we did live together before we got married. We lived together for, we must have lived together for about 2 years before we got married. And when we were living together, that was kind of a roommate situation where we had to split up utilities and food and rent. And I think what we ended up doing is Kyle paid all of the rent money, and then I paid utilities and groceries. And so it kind of ended up working out to be an even trade between what we were paying for rent and then what we were paying on utilities and food. So we had our finances completely separated before we got married. After we got married, we ended up moving everything into one bank. So we had one checking account, and then I think we had a few savings accounts, but we both had access to them. So now I tell people, if you're in a serious or committed relationship where you're thinking about taking that next step with your finances, I think one of the best things that you can do is to create a joint checking account. Especially if you're living together, create a joint checking account, and then both of you can contribute to that checking account. Keep your savings account where it's at, keep them separated from each other, and then whatever shared bills that you guys have, rent, utilities, food, going out to eat, vacations, all of that money can go into that joint checking account, or you can split up your savings. Like for the vacation, you can split that into a joint savings account in which you guys both have access to. Now, if you guys are having complications or just struggling how to figure that all out, we can talk about that in my private one-on-one budget coaching program, Budget Bootcamp. I will link to that in the description box below if you're interested. Okay, so the second part of Caitlin's question, she asked what were some of the struggles. So right off the bat, Kyle used credit cards and I didn't at that time. At that time, I was really focused on Dave Ramsey's method of paying down debt and really believed in not using credit cards as he always preaches. However, Kyle was very responsible, is still very responsible with credit cards, and he was like, listen, credit cards gives you free points, free travel rewards that you can use just by spending the way you normally spend. And that's how he operated with credit cards. And I remember we had the longest conversation. We were on a road trip somewhere in the Midwest, and we had the longest conversation in the car about it. Got back to Kansas, we were still talking about it. And I said, okay, if I'm gonna trust, I trust this man. Obviously, I was gonna marry him. So I was like, I gotta trust what he's saying and have an open mind about credit cards and see, is it really evil? So something that Kyle told me that really stuck out to me is that Dave Ramsey kind of preaches to the people who are just addicted to shopping with credit cards in a way. So people who have a lot of credit card debt. and just are consistently shopping using credit cards is kind of like giving a bottle of beer to an alcoholic. So they can't control it when they have that credit card in hand. And he said, not everybody's like that. Just like we have a casual cocktail doesn't mean that we're alcoholics. And I was like, interesting that you're putting this analogy together with alcohol and credit cards, but I got it. I totally got it. And I changed my mind, and now we are credit card users. We use them responsibly, paying them off back to a zero balance every single month. We do not carry a balance. We do not owe any interest. And we've been able to accumulate a ton of points and rewards that help us travel for free to amazing places like Cancun, to Florida. Actually, last time I used those credit card points, I used over close to $1,000 for a trip to Europe last year, all for free using my credit card points. So for you guys, I would talk about your history of credit card usage. Do you pay it off every single month? Do you have existing credit card debt? And the pros and cons of using them. Talking about that stuff early on is really going to create transparency in your relationship so you know where each other stands. Another struggle, and I don't know if you want to call this a struggle or not, but I was budgeting my money and Kyle wasn't. Kyle's method, I think, was just he's a natural saver, and so he always just had a lot of money kind of building up in his bank account. And so he was like, I have the money, I can go spend money on food, but he wasn't spending a lot of money on frivolous things. That's just not his style. I budgeted because I do like spending money, but also I was really working on paying off my student loan debt. And when we got married, I had already been in the habit of creating a budget, and when we got married and combined our finances into one bank account, that's when we sat down and started budgeting together. And really, the best way that we've been able to budget together and stick to holding each other accountable, and you guys too, is through our beers and budgeting episodes. So if you haven't checked out those episodes, I will link to the playlist below. That has helped us tremendously stay on track, and so we know exactly what's going on with our finances. So for you and your significant other, I would talk about the pros and cons of budgeting. Cons, what are the cons of budgeting? I mean, budgets give you permission to spend, and you're spending with purpose. It's intentional spending. So I'm not telling you not to spend by using a budget, because I think that's how you totally can spend and have fun with it and get after your financial goals. Another thing that you guys should talk about are your financial goals early on and how much money you make. These are important things to know prior to getting married, prior to really settling down together, even if you don't get married. Prior to settling down and figuring out, okay, what are we bringing to the table, and what shared financial goals do we have? What individual financial goals do we have, and how can we work on that as a couple? Okay, so those were the two biggest struggles, just our initial opinions on credit cards. And then one of us was budgeting, I was budgeting, and Kyle wasn't. Later on, when we got in the rhythm of living together, combining our finances, I quickly realized that our spending patterns were a lot different. And I really struggled with kind of telling Kyle about all of my purchases because it was coming out of one account. So I really we both value travel, but I especially valued visiting friends and flying to go see my best friend, or creating a girls' trip and spending money on like a really fun weekend in Vegas. And Kyle was like, wow, you're spending a lot of money on things just for you. And what about me? And so that was kind of a struggle. I also struggled with like, oh my God, I feel like I have to ask you permission every time I want to spend. And so we created a couple of rules to help us feel like we still have our independence, because I think that's the underlying issue here, right? It's like you feel like you're giving up some of your financial independence because you're working with somebody else. So we came up with a rule that any spending over $100, we have to check with the other person. So lately, Kyle's been really getting back into golf. He's an avid golfer and he wanted to upgrade his golf clubs. And you guys know, if you know anything about golf, this is an expensive sport. Holy shit. So of course he's come to me every single time he has wanted to purchase something golf related that's over $100. He actually asked me if he could buy a $25 hat, and I was like, dude, yes, you can buy that. I don't care. That's not part of the, like, it's less than $100. You're totally fine. We also created separate fun money categories where we can spend on whatever we want with no questions asked. So Kyle has his own account. I have my own account, and then we can determine how much we want to contribute each month into those separate accounts so we can spend on ourselves without feeling guilty, without feeling like we have to ask the other person's permission, and bonus, you can use those accounts to buy each other gifts, which Kyle kind of did when he surprised me with a big shopping haul and bought me a whole bunch of clothes. So that is one thing I would suggest for you guys to do. If that becomes an issue and you feel like, oh my God, he's spending so much money on this, or why does she want to spend so much money doing something that's completely separate than me, but it's our money. Create the separate fund categories, and that should take care of the problem. And when you combine your finances, remember that you should truly view it as our money. It's not his and hers. When you get married, or when you commit yourself to a serious relationship, you really are combining all pieces of your lives, and that includes your finances. So you really should take a look at making these financial decisions as a team. When two people are working together, it's just, you will get so much joy out of your life and out of your finances when you're coming together as a couple. Comment below and let me know how you and your partner budget together or don't. What's your financial situation? How are you trying to combine finances? I'd love to know. By the way, if you're interested in speaking together with me and you and your partner, we can do so through Budget Bootcamp. I will link to that in the description box below if you're interested, and I'll catch you guys in another video.